Greetings, agents. This is Private Boulders, the Mediocre Gamer, and this is the Division 2. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my content. If you find it useful or helpful, please consider clicking on that like and or subscribe button. I hope you're all doing well today. The topic of today's video is a skill build that is built around the artillery turret, which is, as the name suggests, it's a turret that launches explosive ordnance at an area of your choosing when you obviously aim it. Um, it's a good build for open world. You might have varied success running missions because some, particularly indoor missions, because the turret, the artillery turret launches its ordnance at like a 45-degree angle or something like that, so it kind of goes up in the air. So it's very easy for it to impact on the ceiling or iron girders or something that are sort of suspended across the roof or something like that. So I find that it does work much better in open world where you're outdoors and there's no obstructions overhead. Um, it does take a bit of practice to get your aim and the timing right. I'm not very good at this bit. I do struggle, and it's mainly because I haven't practiced enough. So yeah, because it does take a little bit of time for that ordnance to reach its target once click the fire button. If you're in combat against enemies that are mobile, then sometimes what happens is you've lined up your shot, you've got your target, you press fire, and then it basically lands, detonates um, to an area that the enemy has vacated. So it's something I struggle with, and I do need more practice. Um, but if you land a shot, it can be very rewarding and successful. Um, it is very handy to know spawn points. There are a couple of times in the video that I'm showing you where I actually do remember where the spawn points are, and I can pretty much nail them as the enemies are coming out of the spawn points, because it'll just clear them in one or two mortar rounds. So knowing the spawn points is a must. That's something that, once again, is one of my failings. I struggle remembering where the spawn points are, so that's something I need to work on. It is a bit of a squishy build, like you don't have much armor or protection, so just bear that in mind. Keep your head down, and you do need to make the most out of this build. You do need 6 skill tiers, so I'll cover that off in the actual build itself. There are 2 variations of this build. One is kind of like the budget build, which is what I'm running in the video. It's very easy to put together, and it is still quite effective. I'm playing this on heroic, and I'm doing okay. I'm not great, but I'm doing okay. There is another variation of this build that will do a lot more damage, but it is a bit more difficult to farm. I will leave a link to that build in the description. It is difficult to farm because you need 2 pieces of Gruppo, and you need those pieces of Gruppo to drop with yellow minor attributes, like skill damage and skill haste, so that you can then change the weapon core to a skill tier. And I think you also need to run the sacrifice as the chest piece. That chest piece that has the perfect glass cannon, and a few other things. So if you're a newer player, you may actually find that a little bit challenging to farm. But if you're interested, I will leave a link to that build in the description. Alright, so let's have a look at the build now. This is the build I am running. So I'm running 3 pieces of Empress, 2 pieces of Wyvern, and 1 China Light. So Empress gives us 10% skill health, 10% skill damage, and 8% skill efficiency. So that basically, that skill efficiency means an extra 8% skill damage, 8% skill haste, skill duration, skill health, repair skills, and status effects. Wyvern, we've got another 8% skill damage and some 18% status effects. And 1 piece of China Light gives us plus 15% explosive damage. Obviously, it doesn't matter where these pieces are or what combination you run them in, just so long as you're running the 3 Empress, the 2 Wyvern, and the 1 China, you'll go alright. Just remember, you need to be at 6 skill tiers to make the most of this, which is handy because all of these brand sets drop skill tiers natively, so you should be able to put this build together pretty easily. If we have a look at the talents and so forth, I'm running Glass Cannon on the chest. So that's all damage you deal is amplified by 25%. That includes your skills. The only downside to that is obviously that you're going to take 50% extra damage. The backpack I'm running is the named China Light backpack, which is called Strategic Alignment. So that comes with Perfect Shock and Awe. So applying a status effect to an enemy increases total skill damage and repair by 20% for 27 seconds. If you don't have this named backpack, it doesn't matter. Just run whatever backpack you want and just recalibrate it to the regular version of Shock and Awe. The only difference is that the duration is 20 seconds rather than 27 seconds. So you're still getting that 20% damage. You could also consider running tech support on the backpack. So skill kills increase total skill damage by 25% for 25 seconds. So with Shock and Awe, you only have to hit the enemy. You don't have to get a kill to proc that effect. Whereas with tech support, you do. But I guess the payoff or the trade-off there is that you're getting 5% extra damage over Shock and Awe, I guess. So that's really up to you. Either will work fine. So with your minor attributes, you want everything to be skill damage and skill haste, and you want those to be as high as possible. Because if you're, obviously skill damage speaks for itself. The more skill damage you have, the more damage that your artillery rounds are going to be doing when they land. And skill haste, if the more skill haste you have, the less your cooldowns are. So when your artillery turret is destroyed or it runs out of ammo and breaks, it's only a matter of seconds, maybe 5 or 6 seconds or something like that, until it's ready to deploy again. And same with your mods, your gear mod slots. Stack those up with skill haste, just to bring those cooldowns down even further. So now if we have a look at the specialization, there is only one specialization to take with this build, and that is the Demolitionist. So we get the grenade launcher with that, which comes in handy because it also does explosive damage, and it can, if you've got a few rounds in your mag, it can get you out of trouble. But this is where having the demo spec unlocks the artillery turret. So that's why you need to choose the demo or Demolitionist. So that, as I mentioned, that launches ordnance at a nearby targeted location or locations. And then also with this, we get 10% increased explosive damage. That affects explosive grenades, skills, and effects. So that works perfectly with this build. You also get a frag grenade, which deals damage and causes targets to bleed, which is good. Bleed is a status effect, which works with shock and awe. Incidentally, when a artillery round lands and hits an enemy, that also causes a bleed effect, which works well with the shock and awe talent on the backpack. And also, I'm going to recommend you run a shotgun, which I'll explain in a minute. So just shotgun as your primary. So just make sure that your passive talent running the gun is maxed out, so you're getting 15% shotgun damage. All right, so in this video, I'm running a shotgun as my main. It's a Marine Super 90. The reason for that is that shotguns come with an attribute damage to armor. Now, damage to armor will apply to explosive damage when you are using it as your main weapon. So it's just a little bit of extra damage, basically. If you've got your shotgun there and you're holding it as your main weapon, that whatever damage to armor stat you have on your shotgun, that is also going to apply to your explosives damage. So it's, in this case, my Marine Super 90 has 10% damage to armor, so it's basically an extra 10% explosive damage I'm getting. So that's, basically we're just stacking damage at this point onto that artillery turret. The talent I have is In Sync, so hitting an enemy grants 15% skill damage for 5 seconds. Using a non-shield skill or damaging an enemy with a skill grants 15% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Damage increases are doubled while both buffs are active at the same time. That's a pretty good that's a pretty good talent to use when you're running a skill build. So you're getting you're getting that extra 15% skill damage, and you're also getting 15% extra weapon damage. If you got both of them running at the same time, you're getting 30% skill damage and 30% weapon damage for 5 seconds, which, as I said, we're just stacking skill damage, so it's all going to add up. My secondary, I'm just running Test Subject. That's a submachine gun, and sorry, no, that's an assault rifle. I beg your pardon, that's an assault rifle, and that comes with perfectly in sync. So basically the main difference there is instead of 15% skill damage and weapon damage on the regular version of InSync, we've just got a 5% increase there to 20% skill damage and 20% weapon damage. I guess, that is handy in case you get a bit stuck maybe, and you need to switch to your secondary, but just make sure that you're using your shotgun a majority of the time. And it doesn't matter what shotgun you use, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you may have on hand. As you just want that extra 10% damage you get from just holding the shotgun. You don't even have to use it, you just have to equip it, and you have to be holding it basically while you're launching explosive ordnance at your enemies. So if we actually have a little bit of a closer look at the stats of the artillery turret, as I said, it applies a bleed status effect on the affected target, which, as I said, works well with shock and awe. It's a cooldown of 8.3 seconds. I think if you have some skill haste, it'll bring that down a little bit. It's quite a good duration, quite good health, excellent damage. You get 10 rounds of ammo, and almost 7-meter blast radius. Bleed damage 65,000 per tick. That's base damage, and then because we're running 6 skill tiers, we're basically almost doubling our damage. So almost kind of around 6 million a hit. Health is increased because the enemies are going to target your turret once you start pounding them with explosive ordnance. So it's good that it has extra health. The blast radius is increased by 50%. So it's at another 3 meters or so, and then you get an extra 3 rounds of ammo. So that means that you're in action a lot longer. So that's a really great weapon. Secondary skill is really up to you. In the footage, I am running a seeker explosive seeker mine. That also causes bleed on impact. Whatever you want to run, whatever you're more comfortable with. You could run a shield if you wanted to, just for some extra protection, or you could run maybe like riot foam to hold your enemies in place while you target them or something like that. It's really up to you. Or you could run a reviver hive. So because it is a bit squishy, if you do go down, it's going to revive you. So that's really up to you what you run. The artillery turret comes with 2 mods that are exclusive to the demo spec. So the first one is the SHD CPU version 2, so plus 10% damage. The second one is the Cyclone magazine, where you get plus 1 extra mortar ammo. So that rounds out our build. As I said, it is a lot of fun. You can use it solo, as that's what I'm doing in the footage, or you can run it as a group if you like. It's really up to you. It is a lot of fun. As I said, it does take a little bit of practice to get your timing right and so forth. But there you have it. What are your thoughts? Do you like it? Is this something that you would use? Let me know in the comments. But I hope you find it useful or helpful. If you do, please consider liking and or subscribing. That's all for now, agents. Once again, I thank you for watching. And until next time, you stay safe out there and take care.